where horror lies.
Guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, aka VHS82 apostrophe. It is week 466. It is theme week. It is Killer Clown week. Compliments of Lonnie. And so all week long, man, you're going to be seeing reviews of Killer Clown flicks, man. It'll be a fun week. It is early Sunday morning, and I'm all congested on my sinuses and everything else, so this is going to probably be pretty quick, but Killer Clowns from Outer Space, as you see behind me. This movie, I never really got into this movie or, watched it. And then with this week coming up, I thought, you know what? It's something I've always wanted, and I'm pretty sure I found this for $1 at Dollar Tree of all places. Every once in a while, man, especially around Halloween time. Definitely go into your Dollar Trees. You never know what kind of small little gems you might walk out with. And it's not a bad blue because there's tons of extras and commentaries and stuff. And but Killer Clowns from Outer Space, a film directed by Steven Chiodo, really three brothers. And this is really a work of love between three brothers and all those who came in to be part of this project in 1988. Really, it is a pretty easy synopsis. I mean, Killer Clowns from Outer Space descend in almost a 50s like fashion. I was gonna share the little from this really a neat little reference guide to films on VHS from back in the day. Just a small little thing here. Bozos from beyond the stars, traveling in a circus tent, flying saucer, and using popcorn and cotton candy weapons, menace small town simpletons in this funny, visually imaginative spoof of the 50s teen horror. It has solid makeup and effects work in the usual droll Vernon histrionics. That is, of course, John Vernon, who plays Officer Mooney. You'll know him from Animal House, the mayor from Dirty Harry. And be sure to stick around to the very end for the hilarious music video at the end credits, which actually I did not see if it's on my blue copy or not. But that would have been on a small little extra on a VHS, which is interesting. But Killer Clowns, much like the nice little reference guide said, it is, when you get into some of the extras and you listen to these three brothers talk, this is a project of love. They had been doing visual effects and, optically and, some practical hands-on effects. And then they just decided, you know what, it's time that we make a movie. And I think it might have been the oldest Chiodo brother. He made mention that one night he's driving and he thought, how terrifying would it be to be driving your car and look over at a car that's like parallel with you and see a really terrifying clown driving the car that is sort of just staring you down. And that sort of became the genesis for this project. And this, it's one of those movies that, I don't know, it's one of those weird movies that's so over the top, but at the same time, subtly, there are moments that are a little creepy, and the nods are just plenty. I mean, Invaders from Mars, The Blob, just the whole idea of kids who visually, they see something fall out of the stars, they know something bad is up, and so they go into town, the authorities don't want to believe them. It's this, this type of thing, right? When these clowns, as one of their devices, they're using their laser guns to turns people into cotton candy, and it really does remind you of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the Pods. And there's some unsettling moments, to be had, like when they're, clawing away the cotton candy, and, and you see somebody who's just basically, I guess, starting to decay underneath, because they really are just food for the clowns. There does bring it a certain, subtle uneasiness, creepy vibe, but then it's overshadowed at times by much of just the zany fun this is. But one of the things I did want to point out is, of course, it does have some big cast leads, man, or not like leads, but Mooney, or John Vernon, who plays Officer Mooney, he does play a pretty substantive role. And there's this guy who plays Royal Dano, who was Farmer Gene at the beginning. He was in The Outlaw Josie Wales. And the other thing I almost forgot, I do want to say this, I don't want to forget this. The cinematographer on this movie shot Spider Baby for Jack Hill back in the day, which I absolutely love that movie to no end. And so that was a pretty amazing thing, because that was like what, 64 when they shot that movie. So this is 88, and so this guy's still working, doing work, man. And but one of the maybe for me the standout film he shot was Spider Baby. But this film, this film is really worth not just the view to have fun, because it's a killer clown film, killer clown movie, and if you're into killer clown movies, but it's worth to dive into the extras a little bit, because a lot of times extras seem too polished, and you never think about it until you start watching some of these extras or vignettes. And it just seems so unpolished, so raw, and you really do get sort of behind the scenes look at as they're setting up certain scenes, like a car going through, all how problematic it is just to bring a car through a fence over down a cliffside, a small cliffside, and then because the camera vantage is from back beyond far enough that you can actually see a lot of the things going on, and then the problems that can arise by a simple stunt that just does not go perfectly to plan, but that's where optical effects come in, and where you can kind of go in there visually and speed up frames. Like there's a scene where there's a high-speed chase through a town. Of course, the ordinances would not allow for any high-speed pursuits through the town, so they had to, optically, they had to go in there and speed up the frames to make it. Now, it is a little bit over the top, almost cartoonish in a way, I guess, but that sort of fits with the overall context of the film, because it's killer clowns from outer space. But the behind the scenes and stuff are very much worth going into, because I think they give you a sort of interesting perspective that you don't get in a lot of behind the scenes, or because it's so raw, and it's really just, I don't know, it's just the camera happened to be there, they're taking it, and they're just sort of talking their way through it, and some of the problems and stuff, visually, optically, some of the things they had to do, the varying camera lenses, they talk about. There's, I can't remember if this is the right terminology, but there's sort of a monster clown at the end towards the climax. I think they refer to him as Clownzilla, and the lens that had to use for that to make him look even more larger than life, and just all the work and the practical effects that go into this movie are pretty stunning, actually, when you consider what they're working with. And so this film, man, and also the one thing too, one of, like, when you first go into the main tent, which is the ship, it is a lot unlike anything. I mean, visually speaking, it harkens back to the Forbidden Planet, and just how visually stunning that was, and you see the scope inside. And I think, versus one of the most disappointing moments in cinema history is in the 2011 The Thing prequel, when they took you inside the ship, when I think they should have never done, because really there's nothing in there to look at, I mean, at all, period, except for the blue light, which is sort of a nod to the original short story. But you go into the tent here, this clown saucer, and it is visually, it is a feast. And there goes my set screen. Anyhow, it's visual feast, man. It is a fun movie, man, and it's a movie. It's funny, Lonnie mentioned this doing a Private Eyes in his last review. It is not so much of a gateway into horror, because I think you're already treading into this movie if you're a horror fan, but definitely it's light enough that if you've got younger ones, and you do want to expose them to some sort of kind of kid-friendly movies. I mean, I'm not sure how kid-friendly this is, but it's definitely not me. It really is just a fun nod at the 50s, but it's 1988, and so, and you got killer clowns, and you've got some funny practical effects, and but there is some scenes that really could probably freak out a child if they're too young, right? It is a fun movie, though. It is a fun nod, and it is a neat moment just to celebrate what could happen when three brothers get together and say, we've got to bring this to life. We got to bring this what we visualize in our minds. We've got to get this on film. And they did it quite exceptionally well. So here in the midst of Killer Clown Week, I'm sure, man, there's going to be some hardcore horror in here at some point somewhere throughout the week. This is definitely a lighthearted pause in the middle of the week, a fun, zany pause, but one definitely I think you've never seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space. It is definitely worth checking out, worth looking at. And like I said, man, it's almost October time, and we're going to be getting to that point where at least last couple years now, my Dollar Trees have had nothing lately. And I live near the Atlanta area, so I mean, it's not for the lack of population. But the closer we get, once we get into October, stop by. You never know what you're going to find. You may even come across this and get it blue for $1. Who knows? So from 1988, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, a Steven Chiodo film. It is week 466. And we only got a few months left, man. We'll be rounded out yet another year here at BodyBags. And so much thanks to all the support and just all that you guys bring. And also today, I want to just add a personal note. I've got this ongoing Italian horror series on my own personal channel. And I do believe this day I'm releasing Killer Fish. And then 2 weeks later, Absurd. But if any of you have seen any of my Italian reviews from that series I'm doing, plus I'm doing Space 1999, by the way. But if you got a suggestion for what I might do, what Italian film from 1979 to 1994, what I might do after Absurd, because I've got those two locked. I need to do another and get that locked. Got any suggestions? Drop them down in the comment section. Anyways, we always end these things off with Go Bills.
This is not a dream. Not a dream.